Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories, the podcast. Normally I do interviews with couples, but today I'm doing interviews with 4 single, amazing people. And I want to introduce to you, I have Megan, I have Mary, I have Joe and Mike on the line. So I want to give you guys a quick minute to go around. And I'll start with Megan, go to Mary, Mike, and then Joe, and just introduce yourself and just say who you are.
All right. My name's Megan. I'm 35. I live in Portland, Oregon. I work as a mental health counselor in the area. I do some crisis work and some individual practice focused on mostly single people who are struggling with relationships themselves. I've been single for a while myself, just on that journey and path, kind of finding and discovering myself and seeing where someone else is going to fit along the way. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. How about Mary?
Okay, my turn. So my name is Mary and I am a very young 58. I am a single parent of 5 children and have been since right before my youngest was born, and he's 24 now. I work in the clinical laboratory industry and I am on my way to Seattle.
I am 46 years old. My name is Mike, and I am from Illinois. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona 2 years ago. I am an educator, and I am fairly recently divorced. This past January, I ended a 22-year marriage, and so I'm pretty new to being single. And I do have mixed feelings about it, but for the most part, it's I'm pretty happy to be where I am at this stage of my life.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. How about Joe?
I'm Joe. I'm from Zimbabwe in Southern Africa. 36 years old, father of 2 wonderful kids, small business owner, recently single. Well, I say recently, it's been like a year and a half or so. So I'm just, spreading my wings, testing out the dating pool and seeing what's out there. It's a lot harder than it was when I was younger, that's for sure. But yeah, so I'm just, finding my way in life and trying to find that someone special.
Awesome. And everybody knows who I am. I'm Kanu. I'm the host of this amazing podcast. So I want everybody to raise whatever it is they are drinking, and we're going to do a virtual cheers and get this going. So cheers.
Yes.
Yeah, so today I am changing things a little bit. Like I normally interview couples, but I thought, let's talk about what it is like to being single. How this came to be, my nephew and I were talking actually when I was in Oklahoma at the hospital, and we're talking about, how do you know when a guy, for me as a female, how do I know when a guy is interested in me? And I know, Joe, you probably will touch on this later, but he talked about, guys, for him anyway, he compliments women on whether it's the dress they're wearing or their hair or shoes or whatever. And I thought to myself, okay, I get complimented a lot. So how many missed opportunities have I had in the past where a guy has been interested and I had no clue? So diving right into it, I would love actually to start with the men, Joe and Mike. And I will, since Joe, I talked about you, I'm going to put you on the spot to start and say, when you're out and about, how do you talk to a woman and how do you let them know that you're interested in talking to them?
Yeah, well, I've never been one for lines because I'm terrible at it. So my go-to is just the first thing that pops in my head. So it's the first thing I notice on a woman. Like if her hair looks great, her makeup looks great, earrings, I'm all about accessorizing. Like if she's got like great heels on or a really nice dress, it's literally just the first thing that pops in my head that I see. I compliment and then just sort of let the conversation flow organically from that, rather than trying to think of a line and then trying to intertwine that into a conversation. So it's more organic for me to just compliment on the first thing I see and then just kind of, carry it on from there because it seems more natural.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll come back to talking about, what are some of the responses you have received. But I want to turn to Mike and ask Mike, from your perspective, how do you let a woman know you're interested in her?
I don't have much experience with this, being, having been married for 22 years and just being single since November of last year.
Right.
I do really well if I have an introduction or something in common with someone, but I really struggle with striking up a conversation with a stranger.
Okay.
And I'm very social. I'm very easy to make conversation, but there's something about trying to speak, especially to a woman, when I am interested. I don't know if I get petrified, but I'm not very good at that. I don't know what to say. I
Right.
can count, even in the past like month or so, I can count several times in which I wanted to strike up a conversation or start talking to someone,
Hmm.
and I just don't do it. Um,
Right.
and so that's something I'm working on.
Yeah,
Um,
and the good thing about what we're doing today is that you have three women who might give you some feedback as to,
yeah,
what might work, right? To talk to a female when you're on, like, what Joe just talked about. So yeah, you're in the right group. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
I think in my head that I want to talk to you. I don't
Yeah.
think women hear that though. I don't think they know where I'm coming from. I do. I think I have a nice smile, so I do like to flash a smile and look at someone. Um, but that doesn't get me very far either.
Right, right. Yeah. So, okay, switching to the ladies. Megan, I want to start with you. You heard what Mike and Joe said. So, what are your thoughts about, when you meet a guy and you're interested in a guy, do you initiate a conversation?
Yeah, I'm pretty forward. I have a hard time with the games and the flouncing around the subject. So I tend to be pretty forward and just ask somebody how they're doing, try to strike up a conversation. If I'm in a bar or someplace where I see somebody who particularly strikes my interest, like say we're not at a workplace or something where
Right.
it's more professional, but more of a social event, I have no problem asking somebody if they're single or what their life kind of looks like to get me off on that foot and see if it's even a situation that's pursuable at all. But a lot of it, if it's more subtle and it's not so direct, a lot of it's making eye contact, extended eye contact, smiling, putting yourself in that corner of the room to maybe ensure a little more contact. Yeah, I think it's just those little nuances and that extended kind of silent flirtation that takes place that hopefully lets somebody know that there's at least an initial interest there.
Nice. Cool. Okay, so Mary, what are your thoughts about that?
So I really admire Megan and her ability to do that. I think that I am more like Mike, and that I don't know if I would know how to let a man know that I was interested in them. And I also fail to recognize when I think men are interested in me. And so
Yeah, you and I are very much alike, and we've talked about this many, many times.
it's like, oh, because he gave me his business card, that meant he was interested? Silly me.
I will say, I don't know that the director out works very well. They often are attached to something. And I think that I get judged as being really forward or overly aggressive or something by coming forward and saying, hey, I noticed you. Just wondering if you're single or if you're here with someone. That's quite intimidating actually for people. That's a way for me. I struggle with the middle ground piece of it. So just the flirtation piece gets a little awkward for me. So I tend to go, I'm either going to introduce myself or I'm going to pretend like you don't exist. But yeah, so I would say that's it's not always successful, even though you might admire it. It doesn't always work for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I would love for someone like Megan to come forward and start up a conversation. And so maybe it's different people are
Mm-hmm.
looking for different things, but I would welcome that.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys might be turned off by it.
right, but it sounds like you'd be okay with it if she struck up a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, personally, as a guy, I too myself think that confidence in a woman is something that is very attractive. So if that was the situation, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, you know, you're someone that, because in my mind, I'm always thinking like, say if we're together and then we're in a social setting, like, I don't want to feel like I have to hold on to you, like, you know, throughout the whole, you know, encounter. Like, you can just go do your thing, I'll do my thing, and then we can, you know, sort of like, you know, connect every so often, but I don't have to feel like, you know, I'm watching over you, you know, in social situations just because, you know, it's socially awkward, I guess.
Right, right. But I think though, I mean, it just kind of brings a point to what I know about myself. I'm not the one to strike up a conversation with a guy and let them know that I'm interested. But once we are an item and that whole thing is done, I am not one that you have to hold hands with. I am a social butterfly. I can talk to anyone. I can, you know, I'm not going to be like clingy to a guy if we're like at a party or something. But I think it's just this fear, right? And correct me, Mary and Mike, if I'm wrong, in terms of like maybe there's a fear, a sense of fear or something that the three of us sort of experience because, you know I like a guy, but for me to go and start talking to him, it's like, what do I say? And what if he says no? Or what if he ignores me? Or what if he's married even, right?
Right.
So do you guys have any input about that?
I don't know if I think it's about fear. I think it's more about lack of finesse, if
Okay.
that makes any sense. It's not about being afraid to talk to someone, because I don't have a problem talking to strangers. It's just recognizing the signs of interest, I guess. I mean, certainly you can tell if someone is obnoxiously flirting with you or whatever, and that's usually a turnoff.
Okay.
But that subtle flirtation or that genuine interest, I think it's just not having that finesse.
Okay. So you feel like it's a lack of finesse then. Okay. Megan, I'm going to put you on the spot since you're the one that works with singles. And so what are some of the things that you do to help people like myself, Mike and Mary to, you know, find that finesse and in my case, you know, face that fear of talking to a guy out there that I feel like that I might be interested in?
That's a really good question. Oftentimes we end up doing a lot more work on like self-identity and finding own personal confidence. You know, what do you love about yourself? I would say that a lot of times people don't do that because they are afraid, right? Like, what does that rejection mean? What if they say no? I think the biggest part of that is like, what if they say no? What does that mean for you? You're not invested in this person. It's this momentary, potentially passing opportunity. And if they say no, you've gotten an honest answer and an honest engagement, and that doesn't mean anything about you. So it's trying to separate out, you know, this moment of vulnerability from the internalization of what somebody tells themselves that means around their worth. So we do a lot of work around that, less around what are you going to say to that particular guy at the party, and more around, you know, when that you experience that rejection, or why won't you put yourself in that vulnerable position. It's hard to make gains if you're not willing to be vulnerable. And if you want something, why wouldn't you go after it? You would do it in work, you would do it with your children, you would do it in education. And yet people have this particular pause romantically because it is just closer to their heart, I think, and they assume that it's about their worth. That's the natural place that people fall back on. But I think that's why I tend to be so direct and just to go up and say, I noticed you and I'm wondering if you're here alone or if you're, you know, single. Zero attachment to this person. I've not built it up. They're not on a pedestal. I've not been, you know, flirting with them for weeks or months or something and don't know the story. I can just go up and put it out there, and they're usually like, no, that's really flattering, but I'm married, or my girlfriend's over there. And then it's just okay, great. I hope you have a great day. Like, you know, you can just kind of write it off and move on. Versus having to go through the buildup of being invested in a situation paying off, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, when you explained it just now in terms of like, you can just say, you know, have a great day and you move on. for me, it's that, I don't know, it just feels awkward at times. And it's just like, how do you do the walk of shame from from that sense of being rejected?
Make it short. You go around the corner.
You know, one thing that I've really enjoyed is being on these dating sites. You know, I haven't really had a whole lot of experience, but it makes it easier for me. And I think it's because I know that someone else is looking for the same thing.
Right.
And if I were to meet someone in a public place, I don't know if the fact that I don't know that they're looking for a connection or a relationship prevents me from saying something, but I do know for a fact that someone who's on Tinder or Bumble or one of those sites is also looking to meet or connect or to do things. And so I've kind of enjoyed that for me.
Right.
Easing back into dating, it's made it a little bit easier. Although
work out of it.
it's got some frustrations in and of itself. But for me, like striking up conversations with people, it's a very easy start from a distance, you know, planning what I want to say.
Right.
And one thing I do like, you and we met on Tinder, and I know we didn't have much of a conversation beforehand. And I remember you deliberately said, I don't want to go back and forth on this app. Let's just meet.
Right.
And I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why spend a lot of time emailing back and forth? Because there's always that fear of
Catfish.
Thank you. That's the term I was looking for. So, you know, and I don't give out my number until after we meet for the first time. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do you have a love story? Or do you know somebody with a love story? If so, shoot me an email, kanukayi@gmail.com. Please go to my YouTube channel, Real Love, Real Stories Podcast, and subscribe. And also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, Real Love, Real Stories. Till next time.